Aviation, Ground Transportation, Regulatory Concerns, and Future Generations now convenes its oversight hearing in accordance with the Open Government Law. Public notices were sent to the media on Wednesday, March 5th, 2014, and again on Monday, March 10th, 2014. Notice of today's hearing was also posted on the legislature's website beginning March 5th, 2014. For the record, today is Wednesday, March 12th, 2014, and the time is now 2:02 in the afternoon. The committee will be conducting an oversight hearing of the Department of Revenue and Taxation. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the senators present. To my immediate right is Senator Frank Uggan. To my immediate left is Senator Tommy Morrison. To his immediate left is Senator Tony Atta. And to his immediate left is Senator Aline Yamashita. We've been through several oversight hearings before, so I'll go ahead and forego all the other formalities of how we're going to proceed. But before I begin on the oversight hearing, I would like to ask that the Sergeant of Arms go ahead and administer the oath for the swearing in for the members present, please. Thank you very much, Joe. John, Marie, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. It's been a while since we had our last oversight hearing. We had a series of oversight hearings last year, and I think it did a good service to our people to get us all on the same page and to make sure that we have the same kind of view with respect to several key areas, particularly collections and customer service. And so I wanted to have this oversight hearing this month as a follow-up on where we've been over the last several months. I know that we've made a lot of progress, and I'd like for us to be able to discuss the progress that we've made, and also to kind of get an idea of where we are right now and what the outlook is going to be for tax season coming up. And we're right in the middle of it right now. You guys are working very hard, but also for the business license renewals coming up in June, and all the other stuff that we've talked about over the past year, actually. Yeah, so I'll go ahead and begin on the subject of collections. I understand that our last document that we have on receipt on October 22nd, 2013 had some collection items that were outstanding. And thank you, John, for providing the most recent numbers on February. It looks very good. It looks like we're making a lot of progress on the collection side. Just to go through the numbers real quick. At the end of October 22nd, 2013, our total outstanding receivables was $113 million. And that balance now has been brought down as of February 28th, 2014, has been brought down to $102 million. That's very, very good news. The receivables in the business privilege tax category went from $38 million in October down to $33 million in February. The corporate income tax in October went from $25 million down to $23 million. Withholding tax is still at $17 million, but it dropped almost $800,000. And individual income tax dropped by just under $1 million as well. So it looks like across the board we're having a lot of improvements in the on the collections of the receivables, and it's to the tune of about $10 million of improvement since our last report in October. So if you guys could just give us a brief summary of what's been going on, and what the outlook would be for this trend, and can we expect it to continue in the months ahead? John.
Good afternoon, Senators. Senator Nicolas, Senator Uggan, Senator Yamashita, Senator Ada, and Senator Tom Morrison. Be glad here to answer any questions. First of all, in looking at the collection branch monthly activity report, what I wanted to look at is the February, and we're down now to $102 million, $102.9 million dollars, and I know last year there were some challenges that we had to work on when the POS went down, but we're pretty much caught up. There's still some things that we're, final things that we need to do, a very little bit of rejects that we're trying to clear, but most of all, we're basically on track right now on the receivables, and basically we're planning on issuing out to every taxpayer, basically to confirm those amounts that are short on our books. We also took other measures. Basically, as you know, the business license renewal is coming up. We sent out roughly around 500 some notices to all taxpayers that owe the government of Guam, working with these taxpayers now, and we have a lot of feedback from these taxpayers. I think we secured at least collected so far about $137,000, and there's more people coming in, and we're securing those IAs installment arrangements. So we're basically making improvements on those areas as well as cleaning up our receivables. So um, with this, I basically it's a movement for also for business license. We're also communicating with all the businesses of Guam. Basically, we took the initiative to basically issue to all those taxpayers that actually uh, obtained a license in 2012 and never came in 2013 to renew. So we want to try and clear those businesses, whether they're being canceled or not. And most of them are coming in and clearing. And if not, then we're assessing those penalties and those licensing fees. So we're doing a lot in the areas of collection as well as business license, in other words.
Well, I just wanted to state for the record that this is an incredible job that you guys have done since October. For us to reduce the receivables by $10 million, October, November, December, January, February, March, in 6 months, $10 million. That's about $3 million of people's money that the Department of Revenue and Taxation was able to really work on, and I really want to thank you for that. That's an excellent job, and if we can continue on that trend as we go forward, that'll be really great.
Sure, thanks.
My question on the business license renewals was, I know that we had this issue last year, and I want to kind of get in front of it. It's March, so we have several months. But what happened last year was, I know that a number of businesses got their licenses renewed, and they still had outstanding taxes, and they weren't on any installment plans. So I just want to reaffirm that the department's going to be firm on this calendar year on the renewal of business licenses. No renewals will go out unless they are current on their taxes or unless a payment plan has been established. Are we firm on that?
Yes, that's our initiative that we took at least in early this year. I believe we sent out that 500 some letters. Those are basically taxpayers that have receivables with our department. So in turn, basically we're letting them know that they need to come in and secure an IA, an installment agreement, before they get a chance to renew their license, or else basically pay whatever the amount is. And if in fact that basically the taxpayers indeed paid it off already, that they clear those receivables. So we're on that track. I guess we cleared a lot. I mean, we of the 137,000 that we collected, I think we closed roughly almost 100 taxpayers on that. They just came in actually and pay off their maybe there's small amounts that they owe, or they have the money to pay it off and clear them, so they can get their license renewed this coming June. So we are in that track. So we are gonna ensure that we're looking at issuing another letter to these people that are not responding, to make sure that again, a second notice. This is to inform you that we still have some liability that you have with the government, and you need to come in and secure. Otherwise, basically, we will not renew your license moving forward.
Excellent, guys. I mean, that's just wonderful news. Hopefully the businesses that are behind on their taxes that receive those notices, they'll get it and they'll say, okay, this is the real deal now, and they'll come in, they'll make their payments, and I'm looking forward to. We'll probably meet again in July just to get a review of whether or not that followed through. But I'm confident that you guys are on top of it. Yeah. With this trend on the collections, I'm very, very satisfied, very, very, very pleased with it. You guys again have been doing a tremendous job on it. I don't have any other questions with respect to that. I think just keep up the good work. Do any of my fellow colleagues have any questions with regards to collections? Senator Uggan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question. I understand that the nature of the standard operations in terms of being able to pursue collections obviously lies with a lot of your administrators as well as the people on the ground, so to speak. But are you able, or do you have access to like legal support should you need it?
Sure. We do have our own legal counsel at the department, and what are some of the initiatives that we're looking at right now is that we're looking taxpayers who are procrastinating on their receivables. In other words, I have my staff looking at all going back on history and looking at some of these receivables that have been outstanding for some time, and if in fact they owe those taxes and they don't come in basically and meet with us and discuss to try and somehow do a payment plan or something. On the local tax side, we're looking at enforcing some of those injunctions that we're entrusted to move forward, meaning have the court basically issue an injunction to close them down until they actually come in and secure some kind of an arrangement or pay off the taxes. So we're looking at those things right now. Our legal counsel is looking into those things. So there's a lot of other issues that we're looking at in terms of addressing the liability of the taxpayer.
Okay, I was just more concerned about whether, in fact, you have immediate and direct legal support, so that if you need to move in that direction, which ultimately should always be almost, if not the last resort, going to the court system and requesting an injunction on all the assets and the operations of that particular business enterprise, because really we're not in the business of shutting down business operations, but if they're not meeting their financial obligation to the people in the way of paying their taxes, then ultimately that's the final step. So I appreciate and it's good to hear that in fact you have direct legal support. So please continue your efforts, and I echo the sentiments of the chairman in terms of the efforts of the department in trying to bring down your receivables and making sure that not only do you reach out to the businesses and try to work with them and get them to come in and sign an IA, installment agreement, but if they're not willing to do that, then obviously the department is willing to go the extra step to collect on behalf of the people of Guam. So thank you very much and kudos. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Senator Duggan. Any other senators on the subject of collections? Senator Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, John, Marie. I just wanted to know along the lines of collections. So when you're going through this process with these agencies out there, like the Appeals Board or the Contractors Licensing Board, that go through during this time or before July, they go through this heavy renewal process as well through their agencies. Is there an SOP in place, or if they're flagged, and I know you still need to collect from these contractors or professional architects, engineers, organizations, or is there a process if they did make a payment on whatever collections you made from these contractors or organizations, do you, knowing they're flagged with any issues or obligations they still have with the licensing board or appeals, do they still proceed with getting a business license, or would you still proceed with the collection and then send them back to rectify any obligations with those agencies?
I think we do have a procedures, and those procedures are basically, I think, some agreement between the board and the Department of Revenue. But I think they have a sheet. I don't know what that sheet, but it has a four-step sheet where they actually go to income tax, go to GRT, and go to collection. And I believe there's another section that they go to clear whether these people owe taxes, or, for example, income tax, whether these particular contractors are actually filing returns. For GRT, are they actually filing GRT's returns? So, and if they're on their books already, basically, let's say they're just filing and they're not paying. So that was the initiatives that we did, basically, is to, because there'll be probably one of those 500 letters that went out saying, hey, I know you've been filing, but you haven't been paying your tax, so you need to come in. So there is a procedure dealing with contractors and also, I guess, other boards that I think there's probably a bill that will be coming up soon, because some of the boards we don't have control. So those are things that we do, but yes, there are procedures for the contractors.
All right, thank you. I just want to also commend you for all the hard work you have done. As the chairman stated, the progress that's been made, and I appreciate the hard work up there, the staff. Thank you.
Any other senators on the subject of collections? I did want to bring up at this time the issue of the criminal investigations. I understand that we filed actually 3 cases. That's correct, John?
Well, yeah, they're still ongoing. They're basically they may have probably submitted some cases in for review, but it hasn't been approved. So there are ongoing cases on in regards to criminal cases. So sometimes it takes a while to get these cases closed. We have to take the extra precautionary steps to ensure that we're in line with the intent and the requirements to go on a criminal basis. So we're still looking into those things.
So those three are moving forward.
Yes.
Do we have
yes.
any others that are currently being looked at now? The total number of investigations
Well,
ongoing.
there's a lot that are ongoing. You know, the status it takes a while. You know, a case doesn't start as this year and it won't be completed in maybe 2 3 years from now. There's a lot of and if Marie wants to add anything into she used to be in the criminal section of the department.
Yes. Okay, Hafiz, Mr. Chair, Senators. Yes, I'd like to say that we do get information items daily, and those are called preliminary investigation. Until it goes full scale, then that's when we go through prosecution. But what happens is it takes a long time to develop these cases. Remember, they have to be what is it called? Court ready. You have to prepare it. Everything must be stated, intent, everything about the case. So if, let's say, you're ready to close the case, but the taxpayer provides more documents, that adds more time to it. Then we have to go back to the bank. And all these, again, remember there's time procedures that we have to follow, even as far as summons or subpoenas. So those all add to the delay of a case, but they are sometimes lengthy in developing, even IRS, 2 to 3 years to develop a case. So it depends on the complexity of the case. But I know that we do have 3 active cases currently.
3 active and
Yes.
others that are
The rest
that
are probably on preliminary investigation.
investigations. Okay.
Yes.
Do you happen to have a number on those prelims or?
No, I'm sorry, I
handy?
don't
Okay.
have it.
Okay. I'm glad though that we are actually getting to that new elevated level. I mean, just so long as the community understands that all we're promoting here is an environment of fairness. If
Yes.
everybody has to pay their taxes, then we need to make sure that we're ready to go the full length to ensure that it's a fair environment.
Absolutely, that is our goal, because we do want to send that message out also.
Wonderful. Thank you, Marie. The other issue that I wanted to talk about today was the subject of the real property revaluation. I understand the RFP has already been awarded. What's our timeline for when we can expect the entire process to be completed? Are we looking at before the end of the fiscal year?
Yes, basically under the contract, the contract calls that the vendor will basically submit the taxable portion of the real property by August 30 of this year. We have moving forward until such time, we can also agree on a date later than that. But our goal is to try and get it by August 30 to timely get the preliminary assessment roll out to the people of Guam, and that's our goal. And basically that's something that we're targeting. We want to try and get it. All the taxable properties here in Guam are done and completed by August 30. Get it out, and the exempt would come in later, but before the end of the year, before December 31st, 2014. So it also includes other aspects of the contract. Would include training and also appeals. They're there to defend their work later on in the case of basically somebody feels or disagrees with the valuation of their property. They can submit a request for an appeal to the Board of Equalization, and that's another thing that we want to meet the timeline, because there's timeline schedules for these things that have to be filed with the board. So I believe it's September 15th to October 15th. Those appeals can come into the board.
So we're looking at the revaluation for everybody to be completed by August 30th.
Everybody, meaning to include exempt by the end of the year.
Okay.
But the taxable portion basically is the one that we want to basically get it done by August, so we can get it out to the people because exempt are no tax effects. In other words.
So if it's completed by August 30th, when can assuming that somebody has an increased property revaluation, when can they anticipate that being applied to a new property tax
the reason why we wanted it August 30 is because we want to meet the 2014, which means that if we go through the process, the Board of Equalization certifies the bill on or before October 31st, 2014. Then we're going to be sending those billings out to the taxpayers as early as November of this year. And then the first installment is due on February 20, 2015, and then the second will be due on April 20, 2015. And in which what we're also doing is we're drafting up a letter right now to inform the taxpayers of Guam of this basic requirement by law that hasn't been done for basically 20 years. So we're drafting a letter right now, we're reviewing it, and it'll be sent out to all the taxpayers of Guam that own real property.
Very good, yeah, because I don't want our, the
Yes,
reason why I wanted to bring
yeah.
it up was I don't want our taxpayers to
Yes.
get blindsided, with the
so,
billing without, understanding what's coming down the chain.
Yeah.
So we're looking at the revaluation by August 30th, the settlement of that full revaluation by October 31st. November will be when the higher billings will be most likely kicking in.
Yeah, as early as November.
As early as November,
Yeah.
and then the actual payments will be on on February of next year
First
and April
installment.
of next year.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, so our people won't be looking to any new property tax higher payments until next year, February and April.
Which is for this year.
For this year, for this year's valuations, once that's determined by and finalized by October 31st.
Yes.
Okay, just so that it's clear. And then if you can get me a copy of that letter too as soon as you send it out.
Sure.
And maybe a second notice, as many notices as possible, just to make sure that our people are aware, because that way they can begin preparing between now and then, putting aside whatever they need to put aside for that, because I know that the assumption is that valuations have gone up, and although we're not actually increasing the tax rate, the higher valuation will result in higher tax payments, property tax payments. So the more advance notice we can give to our people and keep them informed of the progress, the better.
Yes, you're right.
So the RFP is already closed. The contract is being finalized with the.
Yeah, the contract is signed already.
Signed,
So
okay.
it actually started already. So
Okay.
we're meeting a lot with the vendor, and my staff are really working hard to ensure that this revaluation reappraisal is done by August 3rd.
Okay. So then, for sure, then the people can look forward to having this new obligation to be assessed by next year, February and April.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Just so that it's publicly out there and people can start becoming
Yes.
aware of it.
No, and you're right. You're right. We'd like to, inform the taxpayers so that everybody's aware, they know what's going on, and not be blindsided by that. And that's why we want to prepare them as much as possible.
Now, on the revaluation, I just had a question with respect to. I know that we're addressing abandoned properties in a separate piece of legislation that I introduced. When we do this revaluation, I understand that it came up in the previous hearing that the properties that have abandoned buildings, for example, are valued sometimes lower because they ask to get excused from the building part of the property tax. How is the revaluation going? Are you guys going to be like analyzing those in a separate light? Because those properties, they may have unsafe structures on them, but we don't want to revalue them at the rate that has the unsafe structure, and then not do a revaluation for 3 years, and they're still getting an artificially lower tax rate than if the structure was demolished or repaired. Are you guys going to be looking at those on a case-by-case basis?
Sure. The entire project would identify all residential, commercial, industrial, hotels, even the government of Guam, Chamorro Land Trust, even the government of Guam, which is tax exempt all properties. The only thing that probably won't be is if the vendor can have access with restricted properties, whether it's a federal property and they can have access to those things. So, but the contract calls for every single property out there that will be, and it would identify and to address your concern on the abandoned property. From time to time, people come in and address those issues to us. So we basically adjust our records to reflect whatever that value is. If it's at no value, then it's at no value. So that would also take into account. And just remember that this is like a part two thing that we're doing for the reappraisal revaluation. We did the part one where we actually hired somebody to do the pictometry, where we have pictures of every houses that can be visually shown on the pictometry, and those people that those houses that we can't, or buildings that we can't, we have to send our people to verify those houses. So we that's the first step, and we have made all those adjustments already. So this is what we're looking at now is the reappraisal and a revaluation of all these properties.
And Chair, if I may add, if you're addressing the abandoned properties in the future, what would happen is if it's zero value now because it's abandoned or dilapidated, in the future, what happens is as they want to build or improve that, they have to go to DPW and get a permit, which then gets routed to Rev and Tax. So we'll always be on top of that. Okay.
Wonderful, thank you. I wanted to also, with regards to the property question, the governor stated in the State of the Island address that they're going to begin even moving forward with seizure of properties that are due to non-payment. I remember in his speech he stated that it's going to go back over the last 10 years of properties that are delinquent. But I wanted to ask, I understand that the statute currently has the statute of limitations at 30 years for non-payment of property taxes. So how is the department addressing that? I mean, not only from the perspective of what the governor wants to do, how are we notifying property owners and making sure that they know that that's the direction that the administration is going? And then how do we also make sure that are we only looking at the last 10 years, or are we going back all the way to 30? And if we're going all the way back to 30, have we adequately notified those taxpayers? And also the question of those properties under probate, how are we going to be addressing that and making sure that everything is going to be applied equally?
Basically, we're in a preliminary stage right now. We have taken some steps in the previous years. The only way that we can do this process is basically we have to actually issue a 90-day letter and let the taxpayer know that you have 90 days to pay off your property taxes or your delinquent taxes. If we issue that 90-day letter, which is either registered or certified, and the taxpayer still doesn't come in and pay it off, then that's one step that we're allowed to basically deed the property over to the government of Guam. That's a step that we have to take in order to move towards that process where we can actually auction this property out. So right now, for the last 10 years, or 10, 15 years, I think we did so many 90-day letters, which is, I think, believe in 2002, 2005, and 10, and I think there's one more year that we're looking. So right now we're looking at all these years and making sure that these property have been either still outstanding. First, they have to be still outstanding. Secondly, if they're paid off, then they're no longer basically subject to the moving forward to actually deeding those property. So there are some properties that we've deeded to the government already through that process, but we didn't go further. And I think I've never seen a property in Guam that's been auctioned for sale from the 20, 30 years that I've been in the Department of Revenue and Taxation. So this is something that we're working with our legal counsel to make sure that you're set. It uses the word may, so we want to be fair and all these things moving forward. So right now it's just looking at the different years. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is that last year we issued the delinquent list for the 2012, I believe. So because it was 13, so we issued. So that's the first step that we're looking at. So we're looking at purifying that particular year and seeing whether these taxes have been paid or not based on that publication of delinquent list for 2012. And those people that are still haven't come in and paid it, we're looking at issuing a 90-day letter for these taxpayers, also notifying them, hey, you need to come in and pay off your real property taxes. So this is something that we're looking at. We're in the early stage to look at that, and I believe there's some rulings that have been issued by the AG in regards to this. So we have to also look at that and make sure that we follow those rulings and be consistent moving forward. So we're in a preliminary stage, and so I guess as we move forward through this years, we'll go through that process and see where we're gonna actually and who we're gonna start with and how we're gonna start it.
All of these notices that we're talking about, those are going out registered mail or certified mail to
The
make sure
90-day
that-
requires that I think it's either registered or certified to make sure that, and it's to the last known address. So I believe that's something that we need to do in order for this process to continue.
Okay. I would like to ask, and I'm glad that you're saying that you're moving very cautiously, because I would like to encourage the same thing. Of course, again, we're trying to promote an environment of fairness, making sure everyone's paying what they owe, but seizing property is a very big deal, and we need to make sure that all our I's are dotted, all our T's are crossed, and that a full rollout plan is in place, so that we're not just it's not just one person is having their assets or their property addressed in that fashion while another person is not. We just need to make sure that everything is airtight, fair for everybody.
Absolutely. We will do our due diligence, of course, before we go through that process. That'd be terrible if we had to forfeit on somebody's property that is clear. So we don't want that to happen. So we will do our due diligence in ensuring that the property is indeed, maybe 20 years delinquent.
Can you
before
keep
we
me
move
Can you keep me posted on a real time basis? I mean, where you guys are, because I know that you're saying it's very preliminary. But if you guys begin moving forward, making decisions on, okay, we're going to do it this way, and then we're going to start with this group or these amounts or these years, if you can just let the committee know, so that that way, if there's anything that we have in terms of questions, we can clear it up with you guys first before it becomes before it may or may not become an issue. So every step of the way as you guys move forward in making that determination, if you could just let the committee know. Thank you.
And just for purpose of discussion, I think this process is more like a foreclosure, where if we do in fact we basically auction these properties out, the original owner really has a 1 year redemption right. So those are the things that taxpayers' rights. They have that 1 year redemption right where they can come in and claim the property, pay the new owner whatever cost it takes, and basically it's a process that we haven't done in many years. So it's something that we're looking at, the governor is looking at, and I wants to move forward in this process.
Okay. Do any of my fellow senators have any questions on real property taxes, the valuations? Sure, Senator Adam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. John, on the property taxes, if they owe so much back, are they able to? Do you work it out with them where you can take their tax refunds instead and to pay their? Is there a process in place?
Well, there's no mechanism right now, although the law for income tax refunds allows the government to offset the refund, but there's no mechanism right now for real property. Because there's too many ZOCRUs and all these things. So, in order for us to basically make that work, we need to change the real property law to include, at least for our purposes, social security numbers or EIN numbers. So when a corporation basically is due a $10,000 refund but owes an 8,000 real property tax, that this corporation don't get its 10,000 but only 2,000. So no, there's no mechanism. What the people are doing now is that, hey, I owe you $8,000, for example, real property tax, but I'm getting $15,000 refund. So they're letting us know in advance. So we work through the system because they sign. We know it's the right taxpayer. He owes real property, so we do that. On a yearly basis. Every time there's a refund. So that's one thing that we're doing. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So is it something that you would like to see, maybe a legislation introduced to where you'd be able to do that, where offset it to include refunds to pay for the property
It's
tax?
something that it's workable. We're doing it for GMH. We're doing it for house support and all. I think public health and GURA. So it's real property tax that the taxpayer owe, and
Right.
a lot of times we don't know them. We don't know that unless we just have to go one by one and cross check and make sure it's the right taxpayer. But it's very
difficult.
hard. It's very difficult without social security or EIN number.
Okay.
To match, because we can probably, the receivables now at real property is pretty huge. I think
So that's a mechanism that you'll be acceptable to have in place for you guys to.
Yes.
And it's only for our purposes.
Right.
It cannot be made public. In other
Right.
words.
Because of the information. And yes, John is right. It's at the taxpayer's request at this point.
Right.
But until such time that, we amend the law or make that mechanism, we can't just go in there and take it.
Yeah, that's good to know, and that way it'll be something that we can look into, and giving you guys that tools to have that ability to collect in other ways.
Yes, bring down that
Yes.
delinquent account. Yes, that'd be great.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Marie. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other senators on the property valuation or property taxes? Senator Ruggan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. John, you did mention that there are possibly some exemptions, and obviously, in terms of the application of the real property tax adjustment, that's government properties, federal properties that have yet to be returned back to original landowners. Any other exemptions that exist in the book?
There's only 5 exemptions on the real property books, and that's our like the churches, the schools, government building, federal building, I think easements, cemeteries. I think I mentioned most of it. The exemptions that are when we amended the law back in 2011, remember, maybe some of you were here when we basically included the aggregate value for those home exemptions as well as for the government Tomorrowland Trust that we all agreed to make it part of the aggregate. So there are some exemptions. The home exemption is a reduction of the value of the personal residence of the individuals. Before your tax, you reduce the value by $50,000, and if it's been your resident for the last 5 years and you apply with our department, then you get an 80% in addition to that 50%. You get another 80% of tax. So by the time you get a bill of $600, you're down to about 100 some dollars. So we're very generous in terms of giving credits.
So there are exemptions
Yes.
for primary homes.
Yes.
And that has been your primary home for
Yeah.
the last 5 plus 10 years.
Yes.
Then you can come into rev and tax and actually apply for exemptions
Correct.
or
For like home exemptions.
Yes.
And credit is a little bit different because it's a credit against the tax. So if you're 55 or older and you own the house, I think for the last 5 years, I think there's also if somebody in your household is
has a disability.
elderly or some kind of I gotta go back. You can get an 80% credit.
Okay. The reason why I asked and
Or disabled, I think disabled is the word.
Yeah, has a
I think
disability. I think that John and Marie and Mr. Chairman, the reason why I'm inquiring is obviously there are a good number of retirees out there who apparently live on fixed income. So once these property adjustments kick in, it's good to know that there are exemptions, programs already existing in place that may have allowed them to reduce their overall obligation in terms of any of the adjustment. Rather than paying the full 100%, if they are qualified to receive any of the exemptions, then obviously that would help them in terms of reducing that overall obligation. So it's not a no-go, absolute no-go. It would be an adjustment, but it will certainly be something within reason. And the other reason why I ask is because there are still a good number of local family members that are land rich and cash short, and they're very limited in terms of the actual funds in the banks. And I would hate to see some of these families' properties automatically escalate in terms of the overall appraised value when in fact they're not utilizing the properties for whatever reason the family decides, but they're still land rich but cash short in terms of being able to meet some of these obligations. So that's another concern that I have because like I alluded to a little earlier, it's always good to have families to retain their properties within their family lineage, but to have to revert to disposing of their properties or selling their properties just because they're not able to meet their property taxes, I think it's another issue as it applies to me from my personal perspective. So but I appreciate the idea about the exemptions because that's certainly an issue, at least from our perspective, once you implement it, that I think that's going to be a program that perhaps the chair and the committee would be able to tout are some mechanisms in place where you can benefit directly from exemptions. Obviously, there are pre-qualifying requirements, but you may be able to benefit if you have a senior citizen or you have an individual with a disability in your household, or even if you've owned that property in excess of 5 years and that's your primary residence. Guess what? Uh, your bill may not be 100% readjustment. You may be able to get a reprieve of even 10, 20, 30, 40% so that it can minimize the financial impact on some of the families here on island. So I certainly appreciate that information. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Duggan. And here's what the committee will request. You know how you're planning on sending out notices about the revaluation?
Yes.
What I would like to request is that in those notices, you also include the advisement on the exemptions. So you tell them properties are going to be revalued. It may result in a higher valuation that might have a higher overall tax payment. However, these are some exemptions that you may wish to consider if you are eligible, and then kind of list down the exemptions and tell them how they can go about applying for it. That way, our people are they're we kill two birds with one stone. They're notified about the potential increase, but they're also notified about what options are available to them that they may be able to avail themselves of with the exemptions that are out there. And I'm a property owner, so I'll be looking for my letter. And if we can include those exemptions in the notification, I think we'll be doing our people a great service.
Yeah, we'll do that. And also just for your information, our last meeting with the our real property division, I was asking our staff about some requirement. I think I read a particular section of the law that requires us to let the people know on these credits and exemptions. So I think one of the recommendations is we probably do an ad on the paper to see, just let people know, because it really helps. And through my experience, I believe there's a lot of taxpayers out there, one way or the other, they're not aware of these credits. And I've seen these people where they're already 65 and they haven't taken the credit. And the problem with this is basically it's not a retroactive thing. It has to be an application submitted by March 15 of every year if you're eligible, and then you will receive it the following year. So that's a good thing that we will do.
Right. I think that is some of the language that we are going to put in that was considered and will be in there. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because I just got today from a 77-year-old lady. She never applied for the exemption. She wasn't aware of it. So yes, we want to make the public aware of what's available to them.
Very good. That'll be a really good service to our people for them to be able to understand what exemptions are available. Thank you, Senator Duggan, for highlighting that point in this hearing. If there are no other comments or questions from my fellow senators on property, I'd like to move on to the topic of customer service, particularly as we are in the dead heat of the tax season.
Yes.
I know that a lot of people have been filing very aggressively now that the refunds are coming out very timely.
Absolutely.
I'd like to thank our governor for that, and I'd like to thank you guys also for processing those very, very quickly. How are we looking? Are we looking like we're going to be able to process all the returns at the same pace? Because we get a lot of calls about when's the next refund cycle
Yeah.
coming out. A lot of people anticipation has resulted in a scheduled expectation. Where like it looks like, okay, if I file this month, then a month later I get it. So what can we look forward to, and what can we explain to our people with respect to the forward timeline of tax refunds as they come out? Like if you filed in March, when can you possibly anticipate it? And how are we looking at infrastructurally and organizationally? Do you guys have all the resources you need to keep processing these tax filings on a timely basis?
First off, to start off, I know that the word out there is first in, first out. So you got to come in and file your claim as early as possible. And just for statistic purposes, last year we basically received around 20,000 returns filed by end of February. This year we have already 30,000 filed by end of February. So it's there. I mean, the people are coming in, and we are we're moving forward, addressing those issues, and we're pretty much in line to process these returns moving forward. Right now, as you know, we issued several refunds out for So I think the next one will be coming out very soon. The next run. So as far as the projections, we're looking at that. We're looking at how many people are filing and how many refunds are coming in and processed. So we anticipate what the flow will be moving forward. So that's something that we're working at part of the fiscal team. So and we're addressing it on a weekly basis or every time we meet on a fiscal basis. So I know it's going to be a year of so many people filing, and one of the staff basically says, "Wow, we have all these people filing." One of my staff said, "Maybe there's no need to do an extension where we can open some place because everybody
The
practically
satellite.
filed a satellite." But for convenient, we're still looking at, for the convenience of the taxpayers. But it's a lot of people filing early, and a lot of employers are being pressured by their employees. I need my W-2, and they're doing it. So it's something to look forward, and it's a challenge for our department to process those returns and meet the demand.
So, for the listening audience, if you filed by February 28th, when are we looking at? I know that I know there's two sides to the coin. One is are the funds in the bank, and of course, two is has the return actually been processed. So, absent the funds at the bank, how are we in the processing side? Have we processed February, or up to what part in February have we processed to?
Well, because the number of returns that are filed are so huge on a daily basis. Thousands of returns are filed on a daily basis. It's kind of a little bit slower than it. You just have to look at the number of returns. But as we move forward towards April 15, that amount, because they filed early, the process is going to get faster, because when you get to latter part of March towards April, less people are filing. So right now it's very tense per day. We're probably, I think, in February 6th, I believe. 7, correction. My deputy said February 7th. So you got to remember that, like January 31st, there's thousands of returns that were filed. All these, between that and 7. So it's something that we're gonna meet, and we're processing moving forward.
Last year, Johnny?
Sure.
Last year you had about 47.
Generally, we normally get about 60,000 taxpayers, and about 45, the average
Refunds.
for refunds.
Right.
So, I think Marie, how much we paid up so far?
This year?
Yeah,
About 13? Yeah.
13?
For
No,
22.
number of taxpayers. We
3,000.
can go back and look at it, but if you look at the ratio, it's and 45 versus how much we number of taxpayers that we paid up so far. So, but we're online.
Okay, so there's just a lot of people now that are excited and anticipating, especially now that January's been paid out. The February filers are like, okay, January got paid out in February, so is February get paid out in March? But right now it looks like on the processing side, we're up to February 7th, and I guess we're just going to keep making progress from there. And then as soon as we get a matchup of the ones who have filed status A and the funds that are available, I'm sure the governor will as expeditiously as possible make that next payment on those refunds. So thank you guys for all the hard work on that. I know that there is one advantage to a lot of those filings coming in now, and that is that towards April it looks like it's going to balance out, as opposed to having a mad rush at the end of the filing deadline. But as you alluded to, John, we're still going to have the satellite stations.
We're still looking for convenient.
Okay, great.
We're still looking. We've communicated with with Micronesia Mode, and I believe that one I know. I think we're communicating with Agania. So I think for convenient purposes, I think it'd be nice to see those people go there and file maybe when they're going shopping.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. One of the things that I've always liked over the years when I file, is you guys do a really good job on tax day. I'm one of those guys that always filed on the day of. But the reason why was because I'm actually able to file fastest, because you guys are in satellites, everybody's there's like a whole unified response team there. So I'm glad that we're going to be having that same convenience for that one crazy day in April. Thank you guys so much for that. Anybody have any other questions with respect to the customer service as it applies to tax filing or tax refunds? None? Okay. On the subject of customer service, I do want to bring up some concerns that were brought to my attention from vehicle registration processors on the commercial side, particularly dealers and those who are handling the registrations for individuals on a packaging type basis where they charge a fee and the individual is able to turn over their registration to that service provider, and then they bring in a whole bunch and try and get those registrations processed all at once. And some concerns that were brought to my attention were first of all, I really like that service. I think it's really, really good that somebody can come in and file a registration for 30 people at once versus having 30 people having to line up.
Yes.
One of the concerns that was brought up though was sometimes these providers, they come in and then they line up and they'll bring their 30 applications, but then they'll get through 5 and then they'll be told to get back in line and line up again and have to get to the front line again, even though they have all their documents and everything all set for the whole bunch. And I'm not just talking about the vehicle registration processors, but also some of the auto dealers. And so I wanted to ask, is that a standard procedure, or because what I would like to encourage is if they come in and they have 30, that's 30 people that didn't have to stand in line.
Right.
So I would encourage that, the department just process all of them at once and not tell them to get back in line again and have to go through the whole motion. How do you two feel about that?
Okay, my understanding with the registration is if they're a bulk or new dealers, they handle them at the back so that they're not holding up the lines. So they normally drop it off and come back and pick it up. So I think that should work for also that person that's having that service. If she can go to the back, drop it off, and come back within another 2-3 hours or in the afternoon,
Okay.
I believe we can make that work.
Okay, wonderful. What I'll do is I'll just make sure that we set up a meeting maybe and we'll all talk about it together,
Okay,
just to make
great.
sure that on the operational side that's all clear.
Yes.
Okay, great. Because again, when I heard about the service, I was really excited about it. I'm like, wow, this is really saves people from having to stand in line, So it'll be a really good thing. How are we on the online processing though for registrations? Because I know that that's something too that really would help our people.
Yeah, just to add on to that registration, we just added two more vehicle registrations, so that is really helping out on the services. So as far as the online, there's just some slight delays on the online payment that's holding back
Other
renewal registration online services as well as other services like the business license renewal. So we're trying our best. This hopefully it can be resolved by the end of this month. And once the online payment is back, I think we're looking at a lot of reviving all those online services that we used to have back then when the POS was there. That's the renewal of registration, business license renewal, the online services for the GRT online filing is people still use that, and basically they come in and basically pay their taxes while they file their returns online. So that's the thing. And if Marie wants to add to the because he did a lot of communication with the vendor on this online payment.
Okay. Well, right now, what's happening is our vendors communicating with another vendor. So there's multiple vendors involved, and before they can move forward with the online payments, they need to do the non-disclosure agreement. And right now, it's at legal review, so that might take another few weeks. So if you're familiar with that, going through the banks, we have to go through that non-disclosure agreement, and that's where we're at. So hopefully, we'll get something at the end of the month.
So okay, so by the end of the month we should be able to have all the online.
No,
Turned
no,
on? 2
no.
months?
Just moving forward.
Okay.
Hopefully, he'll have something for us at the end of the month, and then probably this is March, April, sometime in April, maybe go online.
Okay, so we can say April 30th then would be a safe
Yes.
okay. Go date.
That's
Okay.
that's a safe go date.
April 30th. We're looking at online services being back on to include online payments.
Yes.
Okay. Great.
And just to add on, since we're in the online service, we secured an MOU back then with the National Associate Insurance Commissioner. So what basically we're trying to do is to try to work with the insurance industry to, rather than them coming in every year and renew their license for especially there's a lot of agents, sub-agents, so they're
that subject, then how about realtors? I know that they have to um, do their licensing also with the department.
I brought that issue up. So there's just a funding issue that we need to address. We did when we first came in 2011. One of the things that we did is what do we want to do? How can we improve our IT? And that's one of them, the real estate industry. And except for the insurance industry, had this agreement long time ago to try and do an online services with them. So as far as the real estate industry, I think we're going to work towards trying to get that thing online. So it's just a matter of working with the realtor association and see how they feel on these things. And the more support we get, we find the funding for it, then we'll be able to try and work on it. But there was a great improvement with the real estate industry because right now, before we only give them a paper license. Now we're now giving them now a nice license to say that there are realtors. So a good improvement that we just did recently.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, I remember I spoke with some realtors about the paper license,
Yeah.
and so I'm
Yes.
glad that we've gotten that
So
licensing thing.
It's pretty now.
So on the realtor side, then about getting them online, I guess you'll work with GAR, the Association of Realtors, on that. I'm
Sure.
pretty sure that they'll welcome it, and then just let the committee know what we need to legislatively to try and help that through, and funding also. Every time I hear the word funding, I'm just like, I flinch, but we'll see what we have to deal with, and we'll work on it from there.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions for the sure Senator Morrison, then Senator Uggan. Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know we brought up the discussion to reconsider the merchant transaction fee, the 3%. I believe that's taken at the point of sale
Yes,
rate. And
yes.
is that being reconsidered or we looked? Because my understanding right now is the 3%, or is it 3%?
It used to basically I think it used to be 3%. Right now it's different. It's
Yeah, there's a
2.75. I think there's escalating.
A
If
gliding
it's
scale,
less
right?
than 100,
Yes.
there's like a fee, $5 fee.
Right.
Between 100 and 200, there's an extra fee. But once you get to like 200 or above, there's a 2.75% fee, and that's pretty. And it's charged now to the taxpayer, not the government. So that's. I think it's just 2.75 of whatever
But
you.
for the
Yeah.
But
Right. No, I think when you reach certain amount, let's say between $1 and 100, I think it's just a $5 fee, and then from 100 to 200, there's another fee. But once you get to an amount, everything and any amount after that it's charged at 2.75%. So a lot of the businesses are now filing their GRT online and coming in and paying with their checks.
so so that
Because they,
yeah,
they
so
don't
that's
want to pay that fee.
so that's my point. I think this is more for the purpose of convenience and seeing if there's gonna that is gonna be renegotiated or reconsidered, that the 3% be factored in, or the 2%. Uh, I think we had it at one point where that was part of the agreement or doing business with the government as far as the merchant. As normally the point of transaction, the 3% is taken off the. Was negotiated before, right? My understanding before this was all put in.
Before it was charged to the government, and the government. Remember when maybe you can go back. The first year was less than a million. Then it started to be 2 million, then 3 million, then 4 million. And I think that's when a law was passed to basically stop that and now transfer it to the taxpayer. So right now the incentive is not there, but if I think most taxpayers, if it's reasonable, still reasonable, they'll do it. But when you're coming in and paying $300,000 and you're gonna pay 2.75%, it's gonna be tough.
On top.
Although you're probably gonna say I'm gonna get this for my employees, work related trips for my employees to go to off island to do some training. And I discussed it with a lot of businesses, and they don't take that route. Even even though they can get $300,000 mileage, they rather get a check and write it out. So if we want to try and yes, I think Senator San Nicolas at one time proposed a bill to go back to the government and let the government basically bore the cost, but that's going to cost the government again a lot of money. So that's the choice, whether we get all these people now to coming back and paying online and coming in and Alex, a lot of people sometimes they have a choice whether they have to go to the bank and borrow or use their credit card. So a lot of them will just swipe it and get it out of the way. Interest, this 3% interest, I believe, on BTDs. So those are the things that you.
I'm just looking at, you could keep the same process, but for the purpose of convenience, if someone wanted to swipe the card, could that be factored into the transaction of the card? The 3%. I'm missing.
Oh,
Right.
I see.
I,
Yes.
when you say 3%.
No, I'm saying a set fixed rate 3% across the board, because regardless of the amount, it's the same transaction. You see what I'm saying? 5,000 or 10,000 or $5. It's the same process. So I'm wondering,
Okay. So
because
to
I'm
offer
trying to minimize the fee,
a
fee,
fixed fee,
fixed fee,
okay.
through the negotiating process, because my understanding it's the same process for different amounts, but I don't understand why someone will pay more for the same process because he's paying $10,000. You pay more for that process when it's the same process for $5. So I'm just hoping maybe it can be something can be worked in some of the negotiation with a fixed fee 3% and as part of doing business
I
with the
believe,
government. With the government.
I believe that the contract is coming up. I believe with this last vendor that was awarded. So we can't do anything until this contract ends. So that's a possibility that we can look into.
Okay, great. Yeah, I just wanted to see if we could. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Duggan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Can I just go back to the vehicle registration? And this is I frequent Rev and Tax because obviously I have a lot of activities in the home front on a regular basis. And going back to customer service, thank you. The treatment has been exceptional, and I mentioned that at our last hearing. But with regards to vehicle registration, there's been a number of veterans who have approached me, and they mentioned it as recent as the roundtable discussion that was conducted last week. And they're saying that the law now authorizes them to either use their ID card, bring the DD-214, or bring a certification from the Guam Veterans Affairs Office that in fact they're certified as a veteran. Now that's the existing law. Before it was you have to go to Veterans Affairs Office, you need to get a certification document, you go to Rev and Tax for your driver's license or your registration, and then you'll be given that exemption, so to speak. Now there's a few veterans who unfortunately approach Rev and Tax, registration as well as the driver's license section, and they were turned away saying you have to go to Guam Veterans Affairs Office and get that certification. Can I just ask you to look again at the existing law, because it was amended, and the law now requires one of three documents, either an active ID card or a DD-214 on that individual, or a certification from the Guam Veterans Affairs Office. So please, if you can just take a look at the law and share that with your personnel in the vehicle registration as well as the driver's license section, because two veterans just in the last month alone have brought that to my attention, and I'd like to see if we can get it addressed.
Yeah, we will certainly address that issue, and for people that when somebody's turned down, maybe this person is fairly new, and maybe a lot of people should just ask for the supervisor or somebody there that knows. But I think what we will probably try to do is make sure that before these people start entertaining, that they're well trained and that they know the law and basically so. We'll address that issue.
Yeah, well, in this particular case, I know that the law was passed about 4 years ago and then was amended within the last year and a half.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm not blaming any of the employees. It's just perhaps the information has to be updated and provided to them, because the treatment that I have received from not only the driver's license section, the registration, the GRT section, with all of your people have been good and timely. So, I appreciate that, and it just goes in line with your customer service. So if you can just share that information with them, the most current law, then hopefully that would fix a situation. Okay?
Yes, we will.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for telling us that.
Thank you, Senator Uggan. Well, so far so good, huh? Yeah, very good. I mean, this is I wanted to say that this is an example of exactly how, I mean, working together with the administration and the legislative branch, using oversight and getting responsiveness that's going to result in improvements for our people is a really good thing. So I thank you all very much. The last issue I wanted to just briefly touch on, and before I go into it, I just wanted to let you both know that we'll go ahead and have another oversight hearing. I believe, JP, is that on the 20th of next week, on the tax credit question. As PDN would say, this story is still developing. But I did want to ask some preliminary questions before we came back next week to discuss that further in depth. I know a lot of other senators had some questions on that. But my two questions, the first is on the issuing of these tax credits, who was the approving officer that signed off on authorizing them to go ahead and be issued?
Depending on what type of credits, because
Particularly with respect to the closure, I mean, the landfill properties, the lead zone properties.
well, basically, that is really a DOA first step process where if DOA records the liability, basically the government becomes liable for that particular liability. And I believe there's some process that have to be submitted to Department of Administration on those based on that public law that you're talking about. And from that, generally they establish that their inability to pay the amount in cash. So they basically this public law offers a credit in lieu of cash. So they basically send these taxpayers to the Department of Revenue and Taxes, and they write me a letter saying that they certify that these taxpayers are owed, and they are electing basically to use this their what they're owed by the government as credit in lieu of cash. So that is submitted to the Department of Revenue and Taxation, and I believe the taxpayer certifies to, I think, both DOA and Department of Revenue and Taxation that this is the amount that's owed to them.
Okay, so the one actually issuing the credit, closing the transaction of the issuance of the credit to the taxpayer, is that you, John, or is that DOA?
Well, the credit will be the Department of Revenue and Tax, because when they file their return, we acknowledge that amount, but the acknowledgement comes from the Department of Administration saying that they are owed. We don't have any records in our department that we owe these taxpayers. Basically, the Department of Revenue certifies that they owe these taxpayers this amount of money, and that I guess the election, if that's what it's called, to take them as credit in lieu of taxes, and basically they send them over to the Department of Revenue and Taxation.
Okay, so you're the one that issues the credit then?
Basically, the credit is given, is certified, the amounts are certified at the Department of Administration. If the person is owed, $1 million, and the government of Guam, which is DOA, says we can't pay you this $1 million, it's almost the same process as rebates, tax rebates, where basically if a taxpayer says, you owe me, $1 million of rebate, you haven't paid me, by the way. I need to take this as a credit, credit. So DOA acknowledges that, hey, we recorded you that you paid your $1 million total income taxes on our records, and the government owes you $1 million of tax rebate. So we can't pay you. So so we want to take it as a credit to estimated tax. So the taxpayers, take this to the government, informs us and says, hey, we can't pay this $1 million, basically, and we want to take it as a credit to estimated tax. So they basically reduce their liability, and then we take it in as a credit to estimated tax. So it's almost the same process. What I'm saying. So what it is that when we get that amount, the taxpayers would take those credits on their only local taxes. So I guess the law allows real estate and all other local taxes.
So on the recent credits that were issued, in the end, it's the Department of Revenue Taxation that's issuing the credits as offsets or what have you.
Well, in essence, it's basically taken on the taxpayer's return, and then the taxpayer says this is the authorized credits that are allowed that the government owes me. Let's say $1 million. By the way, I owe the government GRT of $25,000, and they take the credit. So for that particular transaction, they reduce the amount down by 25,000, and then they have a running balance.
Okay. Okay. And you're the one that does all that process.
Well,
I'm trying to figure out who's certifying the tax credits.
I don't really basically see those things. It's done by all my staff in the bottom, but it's basically when they take those returns, I don't see those returns. It's taken on the return. I see reports. Yes.
So I'm just trying to make sure I understand. So when somebody identifies that the government owes them X amount of dollars, they come in and they say I'm owed 10,000. I'd like to apply it to my GRT. Who signs off on applying that 10,000 to GRT?
Which one?
When I get a certification, for example, I'm just following what you're sharing from DOA saying the government owes me 10,000. And I want to take that 10,000 and use it to offset my GRT. That has to be a unique process. I can't imagine that that's just somebody in the front who just says, okay, yeah, you're just. I mean, who's certifying that 10,000 is in fact owed, and who's certifying that 10,000 is now offset? There has to be an authority figure.
DOA certifies that it's owed.
And then who certifies that it's been retired? That's you.
Well, they bring that to the Department of Revenue and Taxation. What basically is owed by the government. So the taxpayers present the public law that says that they're allowed to take this as a credit in lieu of cash. They're allowed to take it as a credit, a local tax credit. So they start taking it as a credit on their income tax. That's from the process that I know. Just same with GIDA certificate where all millions of dollars. The government owes millions of dollars to the GIDA certificate holders, but the government can't really pay these rebates. So they say we can't pay you. So they elect to try and take it as a credit to estimated tax. So they basically allow the credit to estimate tax, and then DOA would reduce their liability for the GIDA.
Okay. And do you know how much in tax credits has already been issued with respect to the Ledzon property? Because I know that we're hearing different numbers out in the public right now.
Well, from the last I got from my staff, it's what we know so far. I think it's 2.9 million. What we know, because basically some of these returns may be, let's say, for the ZRT and it's filed now, we haven't processed them, so we won't know until we actually process them.
Now, my question on this whole thing is, I mean, you're saying that you're offsetting it to taxes that are owed. So those credits cannot be assigned, like they cannot sell the tax credit to a third-party buyer and they can offset their taxes on that side?
I asked my staff to look into that, so they'll probably get back to me on those things.
Okay. I think I know that this is just coming out right now. Same with us, and so we'll talk about it next week in more detail.
Sure.
But if you can just firm up those responses that we can fully understand how exactly the transactions are working out, because I'm trying to get a handle on if the tax credits are being sold. I mean, how are we even taxing those transactions? If they're payment in lieu of cash, then technically it's cash. So there's I do have a lot of questions on that, and we'll have a more detailed discussion about it next week.
Just to let you know, there's an ongoing audit right now by the public auditor herself on credits. So those questions that are very familiar that you're asking are being asked also with the public auditor.
Very good. She's been doing a very good job too, by the way. I think that I really like the financial picture. Things are really starting to look like they're clearing up a little bit better. But as we continue to move forward, as we have over the last year, we're just going to keep asking questions as well so that we can all make sure we're on the same page. I don't have any other questions right now at this time with respect to tax credits, but Senator Respicio is to my immediate left. He has just joined us. I did announce earlier, Senator, and for the benefit of all of our other senators present, we will be coming back next week to have a more in-depth discussion about the tax credit question. Did any of my colleagues have any questions with respect to this particular topic at this time, or is everyone going to wait until we're ready for next week? Okay. Sure, Senator Respicio.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize for being late, but I also have the benefit of watching the hearing on television from the office, right? And so I'm certainly been following the three items that you've covered so far. I want to beg your indulgence and use this as an opportunity to ask Tax if they have any update regarding the payment of tax refunds. Earlier, we heard that the governor released $20 million, and we continue to recognize the efforts of both the executive and legislative branch to make sure that tax refunds are paid on time, particularly consistent with the federal court order that requires that it be paid within 6 months. But if it can be paid sooner, then that's the goal. It seems now that people who have filed over the last 30 days are really wondering what is the status of the refund payments, and if you can, Mr. Chairman, if they can speak to that.
Well, basically, as you mentioned, we paid out roughly about 20 million this year. It didn't include all 13. It included also prior years with A status. So majority of them are basically 13. So what we're doing right now is like earlier we basically said that we're processing February 7 right now, and I think the last report that I saw was we have about 17 million dollars of A status. So that's something that we're looking at paying out very soon, and we are currently processing returns. And if you were listening, there's a lot of people filing early, so it's hard to finish one day's filing. There's thousands of them are filed on a daily basis, so we are in target to make sure that we process those smoothly moving forward, and basically work with the fiscal team to get those refunds paid out.
But if what we're hearing the governor say is true, that the economy is improved, that the cash flow is good, that the fiscal condition of the government of Guam has improved significantly, why then do we still have $17 million of tax refunds that are status A that's ready to be processed? And it speaks to the argument of wanting to clarify with the Supreme Court whether or not monies are being used for operations when it should be used for tax refunds. Are you concerned at all that there's about $50 million that was withdrawn from the income tax reserve fund and used for operations, whereas you have a $17 million opportunity to return the money back to the people? I know you don't do cash, right? It's DOA.
I don't follow cash. I don't follow the but one thing I would like to comment is that in fiscal year 2013 there's so much of provisions for refunds that were appropriated. I believe that was even exceeded in paying all the taxes. So the outcome of the paying of taxes way exceeded the provision for refund. So the obligation of the paying of that provisions refunds have been met. And I know you have some concern about some money being put into that account and being withdrawn, but the bottom line is that taxes have been paid, and I think for
well, it's hard to say that they've been paid when you have $17 million of tax refunds that should be paid today.
But the law authorized a provision for refund of so many millions of dollars. We way exceeded that in paying out for that particular fiscal year. That's what I'm saying. That's an issue that I can say, but as far as what you're saying about, that's not my section where you talk about some money being taken out of that income tax efficiency fund. That's something that I cannot answer right now. That's what I'm saying.
But I appreciate your response, though, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. It's a good update.
Well, we've covered quite a bit, but we've covered it in a much shorter time period than we have in the past. I do appreciate the hard work of the Department of Revenue and Taxation. I do want to share, I'm always on Facebook Facebook and all kinds of stuff, and I've been getting a lot of comments. I mean, people. I mean, it's really really interesting. They'll post, in and out of Revan Tax in 15 minutes. Really. I mean, so there are improvements, and I would like to continue to encourage them. And again, I'd like to thank the department. I know that last year we went through a very rigorous oversight process, but again, the whole point of that was for us to be able to set baselines and be able to measure progress. And so far, with respect to collections, with respect to moving forward on the property evaluations, and also making sure that people are getting properly notified, getting the tax filing, the processing side at least of the house up to speed. I think we're all on the same page again, and I'd like to thank you guys for all the hard work that you guys have been doing so far. Again, we're just always going to be in a constant state of improvement, but the committee will continue to work closely with you to make sure that the support is there, and that we're also doing our job, asking the necessary questions, and working with you to be able to demonstrate measured but consistent progress for our people. So I want to thank you both very much for, most particularly, that $10 million improvement in the receivables and the collections. I mean, that's just outstanding. So, John, Marie, thank you all very much for joining us here today. We'll be back next week on the question of the tax credits as that story continues to develop, and I hope that we can get some more concrete, a better handle on it. Because right now I'm still very, I feel like I'm standing on a waterbed, not quite understanding how the process is working or who's approving what, and in the end, how is the final decision being made on whether or not that's in the best interest of our people. But we'll talk about that next week. But as of today, thank you very much for all the hard work so far. John, Marie, thank you.
Thank you very
We're going
much.
to go ahead and
It's
conclude the
really
hearing.
pleasure, talking to you and
Thank you very much.
answering the best we can.
It always will be. As long as we're improving services for our people and things are getting better, it's always going to be pleasurable in the end. We'll go ahead and adjourn this oversight hearing at 3:25 this afternoon. Thank you very much.